sponsors of the Morning Wake Up Show.
Welcome to Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live, broadcasting and streaming live from the WIDU Community Room.
The We Do Radio Network, WAGR in Lumberton, WYDU in Red Springs, and WEWO in Laurinburg.
Making Rounds Live on 99.7 FM, 1600 AM.
We air every second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
Making Rounds Live.
The purpose of this show is to bring you information on health and wellness.
Here's the host of Making Rounds Live, Omega Jones.
And thank you so much, Ray. Welcome back to another edition of Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. I'm your host, Omega Jones. With summer in full swing, we're joined today by Dr. Michael Zappa. Dr. Zappa is the Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health, or at Cape Fear Valley Health. And Dr. Zappa is not new to the broadcast. You remember he was with us every week during COVID, and then we bring him in to ask him different questions about emergency situations in the community. And then Dr. Zappa is also active in the community. So, like I said, he's not new to the broadcast, and he is a seasoned emergency medical physician who oversees acute care operations, including emergency services and trauma. Now, today we're going to discuss some of the safety concerns of the summer, from heat and hydration to fireworks, bites, and burns. Now, there's a lot to keep in mind, but before we get started, what I want you to do is remember that this broadcast is for informational purposes only. This is not a time for you to self-diagnose. If you find yourself or someone that you love facing or going through something that we may discuss today, what I need for you to do is find yourself a healthcare professional. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming back to Making Rounds Live, Dr. Michael Zappa. Dr. Zappa, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be back with us today.
Omega, thank you so much. It is great to be back here, and I look forward to helping keep everybody safe and having a fun summer.
Well, we're talking about summer, and we have all of these hot days coming up, so we have a lot to talk about. But Dr. Zappa, for our listeners who may not know who you are, tell us a little about yourself and what inspired you to get into healthcare, especially emergency medicine.
So, medicine is really a calling for me. I'm very fortunate. I was raised in a family, although no one was in medicine before me, but a family that emphasized service to others. So my decision, the way I would serve others, was by going into medicine. And actually what brought me to emergency medicine was really a childlike idolization of heroes, of that the good guys always win and save the day. So as an emergency physician, I get to play hero every day and help people in need.
Well, Dr. Zappa, let's talk about what you're seeing in the emergency room. We've seen an increase in emergency room visits during the summer month, or at least that's what I read. Why is summer such a high volume time for the emergency department?
So it's pretty easy to understand why summer makes us just a little bit busier. Think about it. Schools are out. People start doing more outdoor activities. Except that it's not good for your heart to sit on your couch and watch TV. It's pretty safe and protects you from injuries. Well, you're out there in the summer, whether you're enjoying water, whether you're tending to your yard, whether you're out there on your bike or your motorcycle, or you're pursuing some other adventures outside of your household, that really just exposes us to the possibility that accidents do happen, and that's what we see.
Summer holidays, we're coming up on 4th of July. We have all of the other holidays on the way. What kinds of injuries or illnesses tend to happen during these long 3- and 4-day weekends?
So these summer holidays have the big categories that you alluded to in the intro, Omega. So first off, we're going to see heat illnesses just because it is that hot. The next unfortunate thing is water injuries and near drownings and drownings. Then next, we're going to see foodborne illnesses, so the people suffering from abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea. That all could have been prevented. And those are the biggest things that we're going to see. And then the fourth itself will bring us those fireworks injuries.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Zappa in the studio today. He is the Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health, and he's our guest today on Making Rounds Live. Now, if you would like to be part of this conversation, what you can do is give us a call at 910-483-6111. Miss Glenda, she's up at the front, and she will answer the phone and make sure that we get Dr. Zappa the question. Or if you're watching by way of our live feed, by way of Facebook, what you can do is leave the question in the comment section, and Lindsay will make sure that we get that question to Dr. Zappa. Finally, what I want you to do is share the broadcast. The reason why, we're discussing a lot of important information today, and something is going to get lost in the translation when you try to go and repeat it. So the best thing to do is share the broadcast and let them see the program for themselves. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our in-studio guest, Dr. Michael Zappa. Now, Dr. Zappa, you mentioned water. Let's talk about water safety. It's always a concern during the summer. What do you want families to keep in mind about water safety?
The number one thing that I want every person who has a family with children is, when you're near the pool, when you're at the lake, when you're at the beach, somebody has to be the lifeguard. And I don't mean, hiring a professional person to wear a red bathing suit. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is, at every point in time during your family gathering, there has to be one person's responsibility to watch the children. Not watch the children while you're grilling. Not watch the children while you're checking your text messages or checking your Facebook. Mm-hmm. It is watch the children only. And run a schedule, keep it 30 minutes to an hour, and rotate that person, because most of the horrible, sad situations that we have to deal with in the emergency department are when it was only a couple of minutes, I was only talking to my family and friends, and then suddenly noticed Junior wasn't here. Mm-hmm. So that is the biggest thing that everybody with children can do, is make sure you take the time, just like we talk about when people go out and socialize, having a designated driver. Mm-hmm. You need the designated lifeguard at all water events with children.
Wow. Never thought about that, Dr. Zappa. Now, what are the causes of some of the water-related injuries that you see in the emergency department?
So, aside from near drowning or drowning, mm-hmm. which is not just the young children, people think about, a little 2-year-old that may not know how to swim. Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised when, particularly as we're more in the South, right? Relatives come from other parts of the country, and you would just think that a 6, 7, 8-year-old by that time has figured out how to swim. No, not if you've come from the big city. Mm-hmm. You probably don't. So do not assume that everybody knows how to swim. There are adults that don't know how to swim. So one of the things for my adults listening is, you're out there enjoying the water. Take it easy on the alcohol consumption. Because if you're not a strong swimmer and you've had a little too much to drink, all of a sudden you could get yourself into trouble in the deep end of a pool or a lake where you can't see the bottom and you don't know the depth. And absolutely on the beach, because that undertow, that current pulling you back out, you really don't see. It just grabs you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio, Dr. Michael Zappa. He's our guest today on Making Rounds Live. Dr. Zappa, CPR training. How important is it for parents and caregivers to know this around water?
So if you have children, you have to know CPR, especially if you're going to be near the water. Because here's the harsh fact, and Omega, I don't pull punches when I come on your show. Yeah. The brain has 4 minutes where it can go without oxygen before irreversible brain damage. So think about it. If you're going out to that remote lake, beautiful, peaceful area of the countryside, and you run into a situation where you have a drowning, if you don't know what to do, there is no way 911 is getting to you in 4 minutes out in the middle of the country. So it is up to you to keep your family safe and to be prepared for that emergency.
Let's talk about bugs. People were, like you mentioned earlier, people are spending more time outside. When do we need to worry about stings and bites from wasps and hornets and spiders and ticks? Oh my. When do we have to worry about all of that?
Sure. So, most bug bites are innocuous. They're not going to cause people anything more than a little annoyance, a little bit of itching, and perhaps a little bit of a rash. However, if you know that you have an allergy to certain ants or to certain wasps or bees, do not travel without your EpiPen. Because again, in that situation, time matters. For most people, if you don't know that you're actually allergic, what you have to watch out for is when that redness, swelling, and itching spreads. So if it spreads more than a few inches from the actual site of the bite, that means you need medical attention. If you wind up getting itching all over, and you get a funny sensation that your throat might be closing or trouble breathing, those are situations where you need to seek medical attention. The handful of bites on your forearm because the mosquitoes got you at sunset, that you can take some Benadryl or Claritin and go to bed and rest for the evening and get yourself out of the harm of the mosquitoes. So most of the time, for most people, it's not a problem, it's just an annoyance.
Now, any prevention or treatment tips that we need to be aware of when it...
So I think the thing for that is to know where you're going. So if you're going to an area, or even if your backyard tends to have a lot of mosquitoes, particularly after it rains, spray some mosquito repellent. Easier to not have to deal with it. If you're traveling, going for a hike or a bike ride into the woods, you might have a little pack with you of some Benadryl or some Claritin, an antihistamine, to control that itching and control an allergic reaction, even if you're not someone that has had what we call anaphylaxis. That's that severe allergic reaction for which you need to have your EpiPen.
Ladies and gentlemen, our in-studio guest, Dr. Michael Zappa. He is the Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health, and he's our guest today on Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. Dr. Zappa, let's talk about snake bites. Personally, I try to avoid them at all costs, but I know they can be serious. And what should people do if they are bitten by a snake other than pass out like I would?
Okay, so try not to pass out because then you'll have another injury. So the good news is the majority of snakes are not venomous.
Oh.
So the majority do not have poison. So the majority of snakes you can get bitten by and nothing is going to happen.
Okay.
And even if it is a venomous snake, there's an 80% chance that you're still going to be fine because it doesn't always inject venom. What has to happen from a venomous snake? Their fangs have to grab onto you, and when they grab on, then their salivary glands basically inject venom into you. So just a scrape doesn't often give enough to get venom in there. But how are you going to tell? You're going to know because, okay, I was bitten, and do I just have a little bit of redness? Or does this redness start evolving into a larger red area or a very swollen black and blue area? If it's a large area of redness with swelling and color change, that's when you need to come and see us in the emergency department. If all you see are two little dots where fangs got you and just a little bit of redness there and it doesn't get anything more than that, then odds are that it was a non-poisonous snake bite. Now, years ago, people used to say, hey, if you get bitten by a snake, get that snake and bring it to the doctor so they can help figure out whether it was poisonous or not.
That's not going to happen.
Well, not for you, but there's some people that may be a little more brave than you, Omega, but brave doesn't always go with intelligence. And in this case, I can tell you, there have been many more times where people have said, well, I want to bring in that snake so the doc can figure out whether it's poisonous or not, and they get bit a second time trying to bring that snake in. So don't bother bringing us the snake. There are certain things that we can do to help figure out whether it was poisonous or not. Get yourself to safety and just look out for any swelling or discoloration.
Now, what can we do to reduce the risk other than not going outside?
That's hard to prevent. It really depends on where you go. Snakes like woodsheds, they like high grass. So, there are many beautiful outdoor activities that are going to take you through the woods and through high grass. You just need to be aware.
Okay. And how, once again, so our listeners will know in case they missed it when you said it the first time, how can you tell if a snake bite is poisonous?
If it starts to swell, get red, and discolored. If all you have are a couple of little bite marks, odds are it is a non-poisonous bite, or it was a snake that didn't get a chance to inject you with its venom.
All right. And one other thing I want to make sure our listeners understand, the signs of a bite or a sting, how will we know if it's serious enough to get medical attention?
Okay, so with any kind of bite, mosquito, hornet, wasp, if it begins to swell and get red more than the few inches around where you were bitten, or if you feel like your throat is closing, you're having trouble swallowing or trouble breathing, then you need to come and see us. So big rash, trouble swallowing, trouble breathing, you need medical attention.
Dr. Michael Zappa, Chief Clinical Officer at Cape Fear Valley Health. He's our guest today on Making Rounds Live, and we're discussing how to stay safe during the summer. How to stay safe during the summer. And if you want to be part of the conversation, you can give us a call at 910-483-6111, or if you're following us by way of Facebook, you can leave the question in the comment section, and we'll make sure that Dr. Zappa gets that question answered for you. Dr. Zappa, you mentioned food safety at the beginning of the broadcast. Let's talk about that. I hear food poisoning, they tend to rise they tend to be on the rise in the emergency department during the summer. Is this a true statement?
Absolutely. What happens is, as we enjoy the outdoors in the summer, what do we like to do? We like to take our food with us. So we gather with friends and family and we eat. So as the temperature rises, it makes it easier for the common bacteria to grow. And particularly, a few numbers are worth mentioning. So once we get food over 40 degrees, which that's what happens when you take it out of the refrigerator for a while. Then the chance of bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli, and you might hear a name called Campylobacter, those are the three biggest. Those things start to grow. So a couple of rules of thumb, so as you gather with your family, keep things in the cooler with ice as long as possible. I know we all love seeing that great buffet with all the food spread out, but that's probably not the safest thing. So the numbers to realize, if it is below 90 degrees outside, your food can be out 2 hours. At the 2-hour mark, you got to toss it if nobody ate it. So if you can go over 2 hours up to 90. If it is over 90, like we're experiencing lately,
now,
you've got 1 hour for unrefrigerated food. 1
hour?
1 hour.
We're cutting that party short.
Yep. Or what you're doing is you're keeping the food in the coolers and you're taking it out a little bit at a time. The other thing to worry about, so for all our grill masters out there, is I advise you need to get a thermometer, because undercooking of meat, poultry, and fish is a big problem. So if you are barbecuing whole slabs of meat, so steaks and things like that, you got to get it to 145 to make sure that you've killed any bacteria. When you are talking about ground beef, ground turkey, any ground meats, or poultry, you've got to get that to 165 degrees. If you follow those rules, you're not going to have a problem, and you're not going to be that great barbecue king that, poisoned half of his guests.
That made everybody in the family sick. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Zappa, Chief Clinical Officer at Cape Fear Valley Health. He's our guest today on Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. And when we return, we're going to continue our conversation about keeping ourselves safe during the summer. Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live.
We'll be right back with more of Making Rounds Live.
Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live.
Broadcasting and streaming live from the WIDU Community Room on 99.7 FM, 1600 AM.
The We Do Radio Network.
I'm Lady Patricia Campbell, and you are listening to Wake Up.
An excessive heat warning is in effect for the eastern two-thirds of North Carolina at this hour. It'll be in effect until tomorrow night. In the Middle East, a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran announced by President Trump appears to be holding despite some military exchanges overnight. Down home, North Carolina and Progress NC calling on Senator Tom Tillis to oppose the big, beautiful bill. State Auditor Dave Bolick has released preliminary information from his ongoing audit of the North Carolina Division of Motor Vehicles. The state Senate has approved a plan to pay commercial fishermen impacted by a proposed inland shrimp trawling ban. President Trump is headed off to the NATO summit. It's being held in The Hague. The state Senate has approved more than $700 million in Hurricane Helene relief funds as western North Carolina continues to recover from last fall's devastating storm. Tony Rixby, NCN News.
I'm Jamie Monticelli, WIDU Radio News. Cumberland County Public Library Summer Reading Challenge continues through July 31st. That challenge is open to readers of all ages. To participate, you can visit any of the 8 public library branch locations to pick up a reading log or download the Read Squared app. Prizes are awarded based on the number of reading hours logged. Residents and community members are encouraged to attend the Fayetteville Outfront Public Meeting. This is Thursday, June 26th at 6:30 p.m. at the Bill Crisp Senior Center. This month's meeting will spotlight the Office of Community Safety. That is a key initiative focused on creating safer, stronger neighborhoods through proactive community partnerships and programs. Attendees will have the opportunity to meet the OCS team and learn about the programs and services focused on community-based violence prevention, youth initiatives, mental health response and diversion, homelessness response, and community partnerships. From WIDU Radio, I'm Jamie Monticelli.
Tuesday morning starting out, temperatures in the 70s, and the intense heat wave continues through at least the middle of the week. High temperatures this afternoon ranging between 97 and 102. Several heat alerts in effect through at least Wednesday. Heading into the overnight, temperatures mid to upper 70s, a stray storm north of I-40. Better storm chance Wednesday late afternoon. Some of that could be strong to severe. For the North Carolina News Network, I'm meteorologist Chris Michaels in the Weather Center.
Hello, this is Pastor William Neal of New Covenant Christian Faith Church Ministry. Faith is believing that the outcome will be what it should be, no matter what it is. Catch the vision and join the team.
Need money for college? Well, if you're a North Carolinian from a household making $80,000 or less, the Next NC Scholarship could pay for more than half, if not all of your tuition and fees at any NC community college or public university. And it doesn't have to be repaid. We're talking at least $3,000 for community college or $5,000 for a public university and possibly more. Get all the details about the new Next NC Scholarship and see how simple it is to apply at nextncscholarship.org.
Are you hurting from back or neck pains? Struggling with weight issues, especially during the pandemic? Don't feel alone. Many of us experience these same challenges. Grace Creek Chiropractic and Wellness Center, Dr. Joy Smith-Jones is helping many people with much-needed relief care. Spinal correction utilizing gentle chiropractic techniques, teaching and coaching corrective exercises, lifestyle advice, nutritional counseling, spinal and postural screenings, and dry needling and cupping are some of many treatment options Dr. Joy offers at Grace Creek Chiropractic and Wellness Center. Conveniently located at 5106 Highway 87 east of Fayetteville, Grace Creek Chiropractic and Wellness Center is easy to find. Experience the positive and uplifting environment with Dr. Joy and her staff committed to help you feel better and enjoy life. Reach out to Dr. Joy Smith-Jones, Grays Creek Chiropractic and Wellness Center for the relief care you deserve today. Call 910-703-3386.
Hello, I'm Pastor Frederick D. Culbreath, and I want to personally invite you to worship with us at First Baptist Church, located at 302 Moore Street in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We offer Sunday school at 8:50 a.m. every Sunday, where you can grow in your faith and connect with others. Then join us for Sunday morning worship at 10:15, where we experience a move of God through praise and the life-changing messages from God's Word. We would love for you to be a part of our church family. For more information, you can visit our website at www.1st-baptist.com. That's www.1st-baptist.com, and all socials at 1ST More. That's First Baptist More for all socials. We hope to see you with us this coming Sunday, and we're guaranteed to give you a heartfelt, as we always say at First Baptist, welcome home to family.
This is Pastor Neil of New Covenant Christian Faith Church Ministry, and you are listening to Wake Up.
We now return to Making Rounds Live.
Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live.
Broadcasting and streaming live on the WIDU network, 99.7 FM, 1600 AM. Here's Omega Jones.
Thank you, Ray. Welcome back to the second segment of Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. And make sure that you check us out on Facebook, because we are streaming live on our Facebook page. And make sure you join the broadcast. Now, before we continue our conversation with Dr. Zappa, I need to let you know that as of June 1st, Valley Regional Imaging joined Cape Fear Valley Health, and this partnership, what it means for the community is that you have access to high-quality imaging services and more, and it's all in one connected system. So what you need to know is that existing patients, you'll basically see a seamless transition. You won't have any issues. Also, VRI has all of your imaging needs. We're talking ultrasound, we're talking CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, bone density screenings, breast imaging, and of course, nuclear medicine scans. Now, for more information, what you can do is you can go to capefearvalley.com/imaging, and everything that I just told you, you'll be able to see it on the website. So, ladies and gentlemen, our in-studio guest, we are honored to have with us again Dr. Michael Zappa, and he is the clinical, oh my goodness, what was it? Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health. And Dr. Zappa, before we went into the break, or during the break, we started talking about summer illnesses. And I was sharing with you about when I went down to Miami and I had this monster headache, and you were telling me that I almost had a heat stroke. So I was reading that May through August of 2019, nearly 3,700 people in North Carolina ended up in the emergency room for heat-related illnesses. We're in the middle of this heat advisory that's going to be lasting all week. What makes heat such a serious medical threat?
So, Omega, dealing with the high temperatures that we have, particularly in North Carolina in the summers and in many parts of the country, even the Northeast is having heat waves at this point in time, really has to do with the ability for your body to stay hydrated and for it to appropriately cool. The body is a phenomenal machine in that it has many mechanisms built into it to keep the temperature where it needs to be, but there are certain external stressors that it cannot correct against. Extreme outside heat is one of them. For example, if you are outside between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that is the peak of the heat. So first option is don't be in the direct sun between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That is going to help decrease your risk of heat illness. But if you have to, try to be in the shade. There is a huge difference between being in direct sun and being in the shade. If you're someone that has to be out there for work, or you're the weekend warrior, that is the only time you can get the work done in your own yard. What you've got to do is you've got to time yourself. So for example, if you're going to be out this weekend doing work in the yard, it is 30 minutes outside and then it's 30 minutes back in the air conditioning and hydrate.
That is the only time you can
Key
get
point there
the work
is
done in
what
your
do you
own
watch
yard.
out for? So one of the first things that we find with heat illness is you start to cramp
this weekend
and feel
doing work in the
fatigued.
yard.
You might first
30
attribute
minutes
that to
outside,
going,
and
I'm a
then it's
little
30
out of
minutes back
shape,
in
I'm
the
not
air
used to
conditioning.
doing this yard work.
And hydrate.
No. It is probably the beginning of heat illness. And when you come in for your AC break and you hydrate, if those symptoms do not completely resolve, do not go back out there and continue because it's going to progress. So how it progresses from a little bit of fatigue and muscle cramps, as the heat continues to get to you, you're going to get nauseous. You're going to get a headache. You're going to feel lightheaded. You're going to start sweating profusely to the point when you then come inside because your body is forcing you to get out of the sun. That may not be enough for you just to sit in the air conditioning. You may be in the air conditioning, you may be hydrating and go, I still feel like I'm burning up. I still feel like I might pass out. That then what you have is what we call heat exhaustion, which does need treatment by a medical professional. That normally means a visit to the emergency department, a couple of liters of IV hydration, and making sure that your electrolytes are fine. Now, if you are somebody at risk, and people at risk include the very young, so our children, and the very old, our geriatric population, plus people on certain medications. Medications, very common ones like antidepressants and antipsychotic medications, they decrease the body's ability to control its temperature. So even if you're 40 years old and in great shape, but if you're on an antidepressant, that is going to lower the threshold for you to sustain a heat illness. So heat illness, to recap, cramps, headache, nausea, lightheadedness. Then unresolved, continued heat exposure, and you feel hot, and you're sweating like crazy. When you get to heat stroke, you're either confused, unconscious, and this is the part that surprises most people, is they go, oh, well, I found so-and-so passed out in the yard, but I don't think it could be a heat stroke because he's not sweaty. Well, your body has run out of sweat. So somebody with heat stroke, they're either confused or unconscious, and now they've stopped sweating, and their heart rate is probably very fast, and their blood pressure is low. Again, absolutely requires treatment in the emergency department. There is really almost no reason for us to have to treat patients with heat stroke. You know, if you catch at the point of heat illness, if you're not that stubborn, or if you didn't wait too long to come into the air conditioning and hydrate, it should never get to the point of heat
serious. You mentioned antidepressant. Now, I do know that there are some, like hot flashes. Some doctors use Paxil to offset those hot flashes. So what happens when, I apologize about that. I should have turned my phone off. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But what happens when, like I said, the doctor prescribes something like Paxil for hot flashes, but you don't realize, but you're not taking it for the antidepressant reasons. So ladies going through hot flashes that are taking Paxil, they would have to be aware of the same situation.
Correct. It's the medication itself. that is going to put people at a little more risk. It doesn't mean just because you're on a medication like that doesn't mean you can't enjoy a day at the beach.
Okay.
It just says, okay, I need to be a little more cautious. Just like you'd be a little more cautious with an infant out in the sun and in the heat. So if you are on a medication that predisposes you to heat illness, you just need to be a little more cautious. So let's talk about some of the caution points.
Yeah.
Right? Light clothing, long sleeve clothing when you're going to be sitting in that sun for a bit to help so that you don't get the sunburn. The hats, the shading from a hat or the shading from an umbrella, that makes a dramatic difference for how long you can spend outside in this heat. So those little things, planning, setting your expectations, can help a whole lot and keep you safe this summer.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Zappa in the studio with us today. He is the Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health. Dr. Zappa, let's talk about kids that play sports. I read it all the time, especially during football season. You have a young man out there, he's out there playing, he passes out during practice. How can parents protect their children from getting overheated during sports and during outdoor play? Because this is structured, and it's not like mom can run out there and cover her baby up while he's playing sports. So how do we take care of that?
So what you do is, one is parents, make sure you have good conversations with the coaches. There have been many places over the years that have gotten away from the classic football summer two-a-days, where you practice twice a day in the same day.
Yeah.
So most places don't do that anymore, but some still do. So be involved, have good communication with your coaches. Then have good conversations with your children, because they need to understand their limits and recognize signs of their body. It is very hard to resist the peer pressure, right? You're out there, you don't want to be the first one that goes, I gotta go sit down. I am dizzy, I'm having a hard time focusing, my head is pounding. Well, as we said, those are signs of heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
So you need to have those conversations with your children. And day before, morning of, keeping up that hydration is very important. So it's preparing and understanding what those signs are.
All right, you said preparing is for hydration. So you're saying that before we go out there in the heat and before the kids go out in the heat, we actually need to start hydrating inside before we even start going outside.
Absolutely. If we look at summer overall, all right, today's a work day for me. I'm not planning on sitting outside in the sun, but I'm hydrating. Just because the temperature outside is that much higher than it is in December, we all have to hydrate more, even if we're not planning to spend a few hours in the pool or in the yard.
And another question that just came to mind, how much water should a person intake during the temperatures that we're having right now?
So you really have to do it, assuming that you have no medical problems that limit your fluid intake. So people who have congestive heart failure that need to be on certain fluid restrictions, people with end-stage renal disease. So you have to take your individualized advice from your doctor. So this is a generality for people without any health restrictions. You're probably looking at 2 gallons a day.
2 gallons?
2 gallons. That's 8-liter bottles.
Wow. When are we going to eat? I drink 2 gallons of water, doctor. I'm not going to eat anything. But talking about food, you were mentioning that earlier. All of the examples that we've talked about, the heat illnesses, the bites, the food poisonings, the minor burns. Once again, I want our listeners to know when to go to the emergency room and when to go to urgent care.
So that's an important distinction, an important question. So simply put, if you're at the point where you're having severe heat exhaustion or potentially heat stroke, those are going to need to be treated with intravenous fluids. Those are things that most urgent cares can't handle. Those need to come to the emergency department. Severe allergic reactions with trouble breathing need to come to the emergency department. Bites with moderate swelling that you're looking at and go, well, I'm not sure how bad this is, but it's really itchy and really annoying. I need a medical opinion. Absolutely. Minor burns they can handle. The other things that we didn't touch on with all the outdoor sports and activities and horseplay in the pool are going to be, the sprains and strains that you're not sure, well, is it really a strain or is it a fracture? So those are things that can be handled at an urgent care with an x-ray and determine what needs to be done from there.
Now, if someone is not sure about whether or not they go to the emergency room or the urgent care, what is the best course of action for them to take?
So if you're really not sure, I would go to whichever place is closest. And that's the easiest way to make a determination, because if you're seen by a provider in an urgent care and they realize that, you need some more, well then you've got that definitive diagnosis and they will help facilitate your movement to an emergency department. So that's the other thing to think about in terms of planning and travel, particularly if you're going on bike trails, hike trails, and things far away, is make sure you have a plan and make sure somebody knows about your plan. Cell phone service, as most of you know, is only good 20 miles from the last tower. So if you're going hiking in the mountains, chances are you're more than 20 miles away. So your cell phone may not work. What happens when you roll your ankle? What happens when somebody with you falls off their bike and breaks their leg? How do you get help? So important for you to plan, and not everybody walks around with a satellite phone, right? That's quite a bit of a luxury. But you can tell your loved ones where you're going, what your route is, and when you should be expected. So if you are 30 minutes or an hour late, then they can send somebody can come and check on you.
All right. Let's talk about summer first aid kits. What needs to be included in a summer first aid kit?
So that was a great lead-in. The first part is what I already talked about, is plot a plan and make sure that a friend or a loved one knows where you are and where you're going. That is the most important thing.
Okay.
The other basic things, bandages, gauze, Band-Aids, some antiseptic spray to take care of and clean out a wound so it doesn't get infected, and some anti-allergic medicine, Benadryl, Claritin, the EpiPen if you have severe allergic reactions. Those are really the key things. And like I said, is knowing if the unexpected happens, what is your plan for getting to definitive medical care? Because there's no way we can have an entire kit that would keep someone prepared for everything that can happen. But you need to have a plan for how will you get to that urgent care or that emergency department if the unexpected does happen.
So it sounds like the plan is the most important.
It is.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our in-studio guest today, Dr. Michael Zappa. Dr. Zappa is the Chief Clinical Officer at Cape Fear Valley Health, and like I said, he's been with us several times on the broadcast. Now, Dr. Zappa, let's talk about the over-the-counter medications and creams. Is there anything that we should always keep with us at all times?
So I think some Benadryl, which is the antihistamine for the allergic reactions, that comes in handy. And some hydrocortisone cream, which can help for the local itch when you've got those handful of mosquitoes like Lindsay that just, they love her and they get her on the way out. So, till she can get home, those are great to have on hand.
Now, let's talk about bikes and scooters. We hit on that earlier. Do you see a rise in those types of injuries during the summer?
Absolutely. Because as children have time off and as all of us spend more time outside, we're going to get out of our cars and we're going to be on these vehicles, whether low speed or high speed, that expose more of our body to trauma if there's an accident. So emphasis there, helmets. Okay, that is essential. Your brain doesn't do well on the sidewalk. So just picture a cantaloupe if I were to throw it onto the hot sidewalk. That's kind of what your skull will look like if you're on a high-speed vehicle.
Thank you for the visual. Thank you for the visual.
Sorry.
Dr. Zappa. Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio, Dr. Michael Zappa. Dr. Zappa, let's talk about burns. If someone suffers from a minor burn, what should they do right away?
Okay. So, number one is you want to get yourself away from that burned source.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure if it came from a flame, if you put gasoline on your barbecue and it blew back up at you. Don't look at me like that. I've taken care of many patients who have described that as how they are burned and lost all the hair on the front half of their body.
Okay.
From flash burns and things like that. So first is get away from the source of the burn.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second is make sure that someone is controlling whatever that source was. As far as how you treat it personally, if it is a small burn, then it is gently clean with some cool water, not ice cold, clean with some cool water, and then you can put some triple antibiotic ointment on it. If you have blisters, kind of just like you get with a bad sunburn is what you can get from a regular burn, it is the same thing. Do not break the blisters open.
I was just getting ready. Did we pop the blister?
Nope, you leave it because your skin works better than any Band-Aid. So even though eventually it will open, but what you're allowing is that damaged skin under that blister to start to heal before you rip it off. So once it is open, then absolutely you have to have antibiotic cream on it and you need to keep it covered so that it doesn't get infected. But the skin itself is the best Band-Aid.
All right. 4th of July is coming up. Fireworks are a big factor. What types of injuries do you see during the 4th of July holiday?
All ones that I wish I didn't see. There's no reason for any firework injuries. They happen because people are careless. So carelessness meaning they light a firework and they wait and they say, I'm gonna throw it. Well, it doesn't go out of their hand, or the fuse burns quicker than they thought. So don't light things in your hand. There are people every year, and I've been doing this for a long time, that will lose their fingers this 4th of July.
Wow.
The next big grouping is the throwing, and you don't know where it's going. People wind up with severe burns to their scalp and hair, or lose eyes because somebody flicked a firework and didn't know that here was this person coming around the corner. Those are the biggest injuries, other than burns in and of themselves. When people put too many things into a trash barrel because they want to make the big boom, and then it goes way big, and the blow from the flame actually catches them. So again, I would hope and pray that we don't have any of those this year. So everybody listening, please take heed.
Exactly. All right. Well, Dr. Zappa, they tell me I have about 2 minutes left in the broadcast. So before we let you go, is there anything else that you see in the emergency department that people should be aware of, or is there anything that you want folks to take with them into the summer?
I think we've hit on all the big pieces. I would say as a takeaway message, remember to hydrate, remember to take breaks, remember to have a plan. So when you're traveling somewhere, have a plan, and have a plan for who's the lifeguard for your children.
Stress that last one again, Dr. Zappa.
So when the family is together, it is somebody's job to watch the children while they play in the pool, the ocean, or the lake. And it cannot be the same person who's grilling, and it cannot be someone who's checking on their Facebook. And just rotate it, and then everyone will have an awesome summer.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, Dr. Michael Zappa, he is the Chief Clinical Officer for Cape Fear Valley Health. Dr. Zappa, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast and giving us this great advice today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Omega. It was a pleasure.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up another edition of Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. Our next broadcast is going to be Tuesday, July 8th. So make plans to join us. So have yourself a safe and happy 4th of July. You remember what Dr. Zappa said about the fireworks? Take care of yourself with the fireworks. Also, for our producers, Shaka Jordan, Ray Thomas, and Lindsey Graham, and the hard-working team behind the scenes, I'm Omega Jones, continuing the legacy of Darvin Jones. Thank you for listening and watching Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live.
Your station for inspiration and information. 1600 AM, 99.7 FM, WIDU1600.com. We are WIDU Fayetteville. We do radio. Follow us on Facebook at WIDU1600 AM.
NCN News, I'm Tony Bixby. An extreme heat warning is in effect for 2/3 of North Carolina today. Duke Energy urging customers to reduce electricity use. More on that from Marianne Misha.
The utility company is asking residents to take simple steps to conserve energy, especially during the afternoon hours, to help ease the strain.